You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. We are once again in the fields of joy and craziness as Rod Serling takes us on another little mystery in a small diner this time. We are on a mystery tour for this one, getting close to the end of season 2. Will the real Martian stand up? Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? I should have made that straight. Will the real Martian stand up? This is a goodie, actually. But Julian, what were your thoughts on this one?
This is sort of a famous episode. I'm not as in love with it as other people are. But, you know, the idea is basically that these two cops have seen a flying saucer has come down toward the tops off trees and sort of fallen into a lake where it's crashed. And there are tracks leading back to this diner where a bus has stopped in a blizzard. There were 6 people on the bus, but there are 7 people in the diner plus the guy at the counter. So which one of them is the Martian pretending to be a guy? You know, I mean, it's a kind of classic episode. I like the sort of like McCarthy-esque, element of, which one of you is the imposter. Although, of course, if we want to run that analogy, here there really is an imposter, right? And he's an invader interested in colonizing. So good on you, McCarthy.
Yeah, it's interesting because its messaging is confused because it wants to play out the sci-fi element, the twisting at the end. But it also wants to sort of highlight this idea of the problems with paranoia. But like you say, but it's not paranoia if there really is a Martian in amongst you. So, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. I actually, having not seen this one, but I was looking forward to this one because I knew it was a bit of a classic and it's a famous one I'd heard of. And I actually really enjoyed it. I think it's almost done in real time. It's one of those weird ones where sort of, even though it's at 22 minutes, they try to keep it as sort of as close to real time as possible. And they do fill it with these sort of archetypes that I find that's interesting. They're sort of like each of the bus passengers. You got the driver, who clearly sort of like representing sort of like the working class who's just, going to do their thing. And then you get these characters representing different things. You have an older couple, the established, who sort of like, they're the ones that sort of say, well, can't be questioning us. We've been around here for an awful long time. And it's quite clear that, we're not. The young couple, and then you have the crazy person and the dancer and then this businessman. And I liked how they each represented different things and drove different sort of perspectives. I mean, there's a great moment when the young couple have been married a very short time. The woman actually says to the husband, didn't you used to have a mole on your chin? And he's going, I've never had a mole on my chin. She's, I'm sure you bloody had a mole on your chin. Like, she gets all sort of like and it's that idea, like almost like The Thing, sort of like, have you been Invasion of the Body Snatchers? As you said, McCarthyism. But I like those ideas of the paranoia, and it's fueled then by this crazy person who represents, to me, like conspiracy theorists who sort of like ridiculing it all, but still sort of fueling some of the sort of the stuff on it. And I thought it was just really interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny how we respond to different stuff. And I don't just mean you and me, I mean everybody. And certain things just kind of tickle us, and certain things we can admit are well made, but just don't move us. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of, the classic Rip Van Winkle caper, which you just logically demolished and did not enjoy at all, right? This has fewer logical problems, and yet they bother the hell out of me, even though they're much more minor. Like you pointed out the thing about the mole. I think, they are not, in fact, aliens. They've not been replaced by aliens. I can't imagine a scenario in which I misremembered whether my lover had a mole on their chin. And then that just disappears. They don't, they're cuddling each other as if like they totally trust each other. It doesn't lean into that paranoia where couples divide and are doubting, which would be interesting. And so I feel like I don't believe it, and also it doesn't pay off for me. And obviously that's a much more minor thing than like there's a gas that preserves you, So logically it's less of a problem, but it just bothers me and doesn't please me as much.
No, you are totally right. I there are definite flaws in this episode because, and I really enjoy this episode. I will sort of get back to that. But you're right about the logical flaws because, and again, put me in a room with 6 people on a long journey, right? Especially ones that are as distinctive as these. Because there's an excuse at one point that says like, well, would we know which one of us is thing? We had to come into the diner in the snow, so we all closed our eyes to sort of shield ourselves from the snow, so we wouldn't know if someone joined us. But I'm thinking, you have a crazy person in a trench coat and a trilby. Yes. You have a young couple in their early 20s, an older couple probably in their late 40s or 50s, a dancer, a glamorous dancer, the driver, and then a businessman looking very dapper in a very expensive suit overcoat. And I'm thinking, it's not like you could merge these two people and go, well, I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
They're all and they are there to represent certain things, but like they are so distinctive that when the driver's going, I don't know, it could be any of them. I'm going like, how is that possible? Like the setup doesn't work in that respect because they're not. If it was like it made me think of The Thing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The Thing, I watched it recently because I did an episode on it for 20th Century Geek, but I was thinking of it whilst I was watching this because I was like, The Thing works better because it's a bunch of guys, like yes, you've got like Keith Davis in there, so you have sort of like race, because you've got there's 2 black guys and there's a younger guy, and they're all different ages and stuff, but generally it's a bunch of guys, right? And they're all in very sort of like they're in winter wear. Okay, the idea is not to homogenize them, but they're very much sort of like, they're distinctive enough, but not too distinctive. So, because the idea is a paranoia, very similar thing. But if the film was all about a bunch of people that were massively different, it wouldn't work. And that's where I think I can see where it goes with this, where this whole thing about the pervy driver only noticed the glamorous dancer. I'm like, I'm not buying that. If you've been on this bus for 2 hours or more.
Yeah, I had the same thought, and you're right. That completely demolishes the entire point.
Yeah,
and that is another objection that I have. And I do find myself thinking like, there's no detection here, right? Like if you were actually one of those cops, you'd say, okay, right. So assuming that the driver isn't an alien, which we can probably assume, he remembers the girl. I do think that, you see like magic tricks that people don't notice, major things going on right in front of them. I can buy that somebody would say, like, I don't think I saw that guy with the trilby. Wait a minute. I think I can kind of imagine him sitting in a chair, even though he wasn't, right? But they're going to be, another thing that they failed to do, although it's 1961, so maybe a cop would fail to do this. Certainly we know from False Confessions and, all that cops did a lot of bad detective work in that era, but not that it doesn't sometimes happen now, but takes people in the other room, to question them and just say like, what do you remember on the bus? Because everybody's going to remember, that couple in front of me, right? I remember, everybody's going to remember somebody, and you make notes and put it together. But nobody, these cops just are not really interested in solving.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was fully my expectation of this episode, that there'd be a series, like a quick sort of like 5-6 minute section that would just be head-to-heads, talking heads of each of the guests or each of the bus drivers going like, well, I remember this, or like, and then sort of spouting a theory or pointing a finger at somebody else. That was what I was expecting, that thing. Because even at one point when the jukebox goes off and it shows a wider shot of the thing. You see there are two external rooms. There's I think it's a bathroom in one point, and there's a door behind the bar, behind the counter. And so I'm like, I thought the same. I was like, okay, that's what's gonna happen. It doesn't, and I was so surprised. I'm like, that's a trope. That's a trope that should happen. But you're right about the detection as well, because one of the things that's most interesting, this seems to happen with these things at times, like the glamorous dancer is the one who points out how they should detect these things. Like she literally says, like, well, you should look at the couples. If you're looking for one person, we know there's only one additional person. So if the couples have come together, then you can almost eliminate them.
Mm-hmm.
So she points that out at the police. Like, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, well done. Yeah, like she's doing their job better than them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's no detection. It's interesting. Yeah, it's a bizarre in that respect.
Let's just pause for a second and actually imagine that, even given the evidence that we have, what we would think as those police officers. Okay, there are couples. Let's eliminate the couples, despite one little comment about a mole, which is clearly just there to make us say, don't be so sure, right? But you would notice if your spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend were replaced, right? So if we eliminate the couples, if we eliminate the dancer who the bus driver has recognizes, right, and the driver, we are left with a crazy googly-eyed man and a guy and the sort of like playwright snobby guy. All right, well, we're down to two. Okay, I don't know why, and those are probably the most recognizable sort of people, right? I mean, but at least we're down to two. Maybe inspect their persons, because if you did that just with those two, you would notice the guy's got at least one extra arm under that jacket. I mean, it would not be hard to solve this.
No, and that's one of the things. Because it is. It's not. This isn't hard to do. Like this is what was so sort of frustrating about it. Actually, was like, I really like the setup. Well, the thing is as well, like I'm willing to sort of forego certain things. I'm willing to accept certain things. So these two state troopers, whatever, are happy to very, very quickly. They are happy to believe they are hunting an alien.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, I'm going to go with that. Right? They accept that.
It's part of the premise.
It's part of the premise, yeah. So I'm willing to accept that. Fine. But one of the things that sort of, like you say, is the fact how quick this detection should really take. The fact that they're all so different that doesn't really that bit sort of falls for me. But the thing to me, like, it works more on a thematic level, on that sort of idea of how these people react, that I kind of like. But again, it's the shortness of this doesn't benefit it. Because if you've ever seen the film, and this is a trope, if you've watched any film with a group of people isolated, trapped, that is going to go through a form of paranoia. We've mentioned The Thing, but Dawn of the Dead, or The Mist, those sorts of things. You get that factionalization. The group should almost be bigger, because the bigger it is, the bigger the group, the more someone can blend in. 13 to 14 people, or 13 going up to 14 people is harder to detect in than 6 to 7. But again, because of the budget and the time, you can't have that large group of people. But that's what this needs. It needs almost like a crowd. Like if it's a coach of people, like it needs a full coach of people to be blended into. And that's what you sort of, I was thinking of. Like, I like this because it's a much smaller version. And again, the snow creates that sort of isolation, and they can't go over this bridge. And we'll get to the ending in a second. But I like that bit because these people seem to represent something to me, that I like. I'm liking where they're going. But you're right, like the detection of this doesn't work. And I'm not entirely sure the police actually even believe it by the end anyway. But
yeah, it's very bizarre, and there are all these sort of ideas like the mole that kind on the chin that sort of are mentioned and then dropped. Yeah. Another is getting them to present their identification. So, all we hear is that the woman, the dancer doesn't have, she says, well, no, I put my wallet in my other bag. And the cops are just like, right, well, forget that then. Well,
Yeah.
at least everybody, I mean, she was the one who the driver saw. At least get the identification from literally everyone else, and then you'd find, right, well, so we're down to the woman that the driver saw and the alien who doesn't have ID. I wonder who it is, right?
Yeah.
But the cops just drop that as soon as it's like, right, well, we can't get it from everyone, so let's just throw that out.
No, I agree. I do agree with that. That's a really good point. The other thing, actually, I want to throw in as well, because where was the alien trying to go? Because you learn at the end it's about colonization and this other stuff, and he actually refers to wherever this diner is. That it's backwards, it's nice and quiet. We could colonize here. Da da da. So where was he going? What was the plan? Like, he crashed his spaceship. So where was he going? Like, I don't understand. Because we'll jump to the end, because the ending is obviously the reason they've been in this diner is because there's a bridge. It's been snowing on this bridge, and so the driver considers it's dangerous, and so the county engineer, that seems like a real job, goes out to the bridge and declares that it's safe. And so he's still a bit nervous, so the state police agree to go over the bridge first, and they agree. Okay, so everyone jumps back on the bus. And at the end of the episode, you've also had, so by the way, throughout all this, you've had the guy who runs and owns, or assumes owns, the diner. And he's just been there as a bit of a sort of like, he can't be a suspect because he obviously runs this diner. He's just been there all the time. And so he's there as a bit of a sort of almost as a perspective character. Like, he's the one that's going, oh, this is weird, isn't it? Oh, this is crazy. And sort of commenting on it with the police. But at the very end of the episode, you see the guy with the trilby walk back in. He sort of comes back in, and he says, "There was a terrible accident. The bridge wasn't safe. The police went in, the bus went in, and no one survived." And I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah, that got dark really fast.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then he points out, he's like, "Oh, so you survived?" He's like, "Yeah, I must have got lucky." And the guy's like, "Yeah, you're not even wet." And then it's obviously that's the reveal then, and he's like, well, no, it's sort of an illusion, much like the phone ringing and the jukebox coming on, and he does those things. And so again, just before we get to the very end, it made me think before, because the jukebox has been coming on and enjoying what's there. I'm like, oh, so was he doing it?
Yeah.
Because that just sort of highlights that there's something weird. What was the purpose in that? Like,
no, and he made the lights go on and off, but presumably that was an illusion too. But don't forget, he says, in response to why, you're not even wet, he says, what's wet?
Yeah.
Right. So you have been engaging in a sophisticated conversation with everyone, but you don't know the word wet? Like, what version of an alien mind is this? And if you have the power to project illusions, why aren't you doing it now? Why did you choose this form? Why? There's a million other things you could have done with that power. Also, if you survived, I mean, first of all, you just said the cops were going over the bridge first, and they're aware that it's not. Somebody even makes a comment like it wouldn't hold many pounds or something. Right. So the cop car would then fall in, and the bus would not. Under what scenario does everyone fall in and die? I don't buy that.
Okay, I think that the bus driver and the police were getting on. They got a bit close, and he was like, "I'll race you." And it was neck and neck, and then that's actually what drove them in. They both tried to go over the bridge at the same time, Fast and Furious style, living their life quarter mile at a time. That's what it was.
And the bus driver leans out the window and yells at the cop, "It's about family."
Yes, as they all go over the bridge.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then why is the Martian who's there to colonize? You're quite right. Like, he doesn't even mention, like, right, we came here to find a nice place to colonize. This is a nice area. I'm not even going to mention the fact that we crashed or what happened, right?
Yeah.
Why is he telling the guy who owns the diner any of this to begin with? And then the big reveal is, he's got a third hand, which I think is quite well done, right? There's a third hand under
I was really quite impressed with how they did that, yeah.
And
although if it's a projection, like he's projecting a well-tailored third arm. That suit is very well cut.
Well, and also, if you're going to hide as a human, why hide as this like very recognizable guy who's addicted to everyone? I mean, who's clearly very affected. It doesn't make sense. And why are you telling the guy who owns the diner? And then the guy who owns the diner takes off his hat and he's got a third eye and he says, well, we've already colonized it. We're from Venus. Yeah. So, I mean, but again, it's funny to me, like what works for me and what works for you. I mean, I find this charming and campy, but not cool, right?
Yeah.
I find the heist episode cool and adorable in a way that you don't. And you're tickled by this one more than I am.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think some of it comes down to some of the performances. Like the logic on this doesn't work, and I agree. And there's so much more you could do with this. This is one of those, a bit like what's it called? The aliens on, what was the one on the What's It Street that we did that was remade.
Yeah.
That was when that was remade early 2000s with Forrest Whitaker. That one, that was really good. There's a part of me that thinks, like, if you were to give this an hour or
the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. That because we both said that remake was equal to the original, if not better in some ways. They've really modernized it. And there's a part of me that's like, if this is one of those ones that you'd be like, give it 45 minutes to an hour, and you could really do a good paranoia episode. Like, there's something really good here to tap into. And I think, there's a lot there. You could even really tap into modern culture about the separation between left and right, and trans rights and all this other stuff, like questioning people as to, like, and it sounds awful, but like, what is a woman or whatever. These things there are things you could bring into this that really, I think, would be fascinating to discuss.
You might look and identify as a human, but if you were born a Martian, you can't use that bathroom.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit bizarre. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, more time would get into some of that thing, like the thing, sort of paranoia.
Yeah.
We could have those sort of interrogations. Yeah.
There's a better episode of this. There's a better version of this. But there was just something that tickled me, and I think it's one of those that when you do see that final reveal, again, like the last sort of like 3 minutes of this are really dark, like oddly dark, because it's all about, like, the humans are all dead in this tragic accident, and then he's like, and it's clear he's trying to be threatening. Like, he doesn't know this is a Venusian, this person behind the counter. So he's trying to be sort of threatening of, like, well, it's almost clear that he's going to die. Like, he's like, well, we're from Mars and I've got 3 arms, and, like, there's no point hiding anymore because I'm going to kill you. Like, we're here to colonize, so you're dead. That's clearly the intent, or the sentiment he's given off. And then when the Venusian's back and he's like, well, I think you'll find your colonization, your colony ships have been intercepted and destroyed, and we're already colonizing here. So, and he just starts laughing. I was just like, man, this went from like a small sort of like episode about sort of paranoia to intergalactic war very quickly.
Did he say the ships have been intercepted and destroyed, or does he just say, like, we've been here? We had the same idea. We've been here 4 years.
No, he says they will have been intercepted.
Oh, okay.
He actually says he looks really smug, and he says, well, no, I think you'll find that your ships will have been intercepted and destroyed.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
wow.
Oh, yeah, wow. That went somewhere very quick. Like, that Martian is done for. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even surprise me if this got like a spin-off where, like, it's like, here's the town of Venusians that, whatever, like a Twin Peaks kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be more interesting, I think. The sort of Venusian pod people town.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did quite like this episode. It was good fun. It made me chuckle. I think I like the crazy person more than I probably should. But overall. But any final thoughts then for Will the Real Martian stand up?
I mean, I just think it's campy and charming and sort of fun. I will say, in its defense, I don't think it's one of my favorites, but I will say in its defense that, especially with that campy ending, it sort of knows that it's silly, and that helps you sort of forgive these logical flaws in a way that some of the stuff that I prefer does not know it. I mean, at the end, it's almost a comedy episode, despite all this horror that's just happening off screen.
Yeah. Yes, the suggestion of the genocide of the Martians in space is.
Well, imagine,
yeah.
like, I want to see some close-ups of those cops drowning in a river, going, no, no, and being swept away. The episode's tone would change just a little.
Yes,
the bus fills up with water slowly.
I can't imagine Rod Serling pitching that at the studio. Right, well, this episode we're actually going to show a young couple drowning in a bus as it gets swept away down a river.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like this episode. I think it's good. I like this episode. We sort of slightly disagree. It's always interesting. Mm-hmm. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, anyway, thank you as always for your support and trekking through the Twilight Zone. We're one episode away. This is it. We're now come up to the last episode. The next one is the last episode of season 2. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. And ladies and gentlemen, we shall see you on the next episode.